a person in and of themselves as a subject existing concept to change the world around us. Universal rules and starting points are insufficient. Rather, ethics need to be concerned with concept differentiation identity. So METI 6 subjects are differentiated as the opposites desiring machine being points of the subject should be understood as a possibly irreducible universal notion or operative self-identity. Subject should be expressed as self and present neither by coming forward towards the truth or moral idea. Subjectification related to complexity language that have a single meaning such would fail to acknowledge the plural subject multiplicity. You should reject our understanding relation between subject and the world around us are insufficient for ethics to the gap between the discursive regimes that we're material world that we experience. Anything else leads to co-opting the solution of possible failings that we can meet and must be identical to the dominant side conception of subject in order to exist at all. Schaefer 13 co-optimism emerging when something you desire is actually an obstacle to your flourishing fantasy of the good life emerging response to ongoing pressure. Ordinary affect is missing link between discursive between the body optimism finds bodies that fancy good left to presence. A possibility may or may not be defeated by the condition to own emergence as a solution to ethical conflicts to embrace an ethic that sustains our concept process of becoming any other attempt to understand morality would fail to recognize the way that social relation constantly change our nature and what it means to be a subject. Imperceptibility is that solution rather than going against the process of becoming by limiting ourselves to majority consumption of idealized identity which embrace a constant differentiation identity. Radio 86. Ethical behavior is a transient for the subject, living like low without stopping and becoming imperceptible, choosing our own way to disappear, the solution of subject force that frame, all process becoming aimed at becoming imperceptible. There's no class of being and not being, the rather virtual, objectivity, greater animal product without organs, the trigger, becoming imperceptible, and the imperceptible solves the static motion and notions of recognition that play debate models of structural violence frameworks attempt to eliminate difference to politics inclusion, but assume a coherent subject based on preconceived notion and turn target individuals who represent deviancy. Evans 10. With liberal case predicating elimination of different warwords declared to achieve the possible moving forward becomes lethal, unending cross fought into the modalities of life-giving, its mastery by posing the unification of species, what becomes dangerous emerges from the liberal imagination of violence, sanction against those who newly appointed enemies of humanity are doing what is necessary out of global issue requires violence against political difference, to redefine the threshold that distinguishes and separates what is inside and the outside there, is it failed to adjust the violence that is a constituent of an essential part of liberal and counter rejector, attempt to include individuals by making them perceptible, the standard role of both the debate arrest interrogates oppressive politics recognition by embracing deviancy becoming imperceptible. McCormick, ethics demands acknowledgement in different forms of embodiment are different not only their own body, but the system by which dominant culture understands the body. Any demand for recognition or assimilation without recognitive tool culture cannot see the other. No pure remarkable subjectivity exists. Only variance and majoritarian variance are minoritarian to a failure of one the index is such a lack instead of like you as an educator also in the educational activity also have a moral responsibility to challenge static modes of recognition. The best model debate interrogates conception debate understands the process of becoming. Cole 11 Delusian educational life forms add to the process of civil society non-normative fashion. New power relationships are questioned. The teacher learner will change communities practices and integrating traditional values into the ways of the low and the value of the various forms of education are normalized imposed upon an individual consistent, making them change the points of subjectification, moving towards a nobler conformity that yield. Part 2 is the offense. Welcome to America. Donald J. Trump, your rightful president, elect and stopping first the best method for stopping violence. Police forces and military stopping first uniquely targets minorities, makes them disposable targets. 015 public space to transform to war zones acting as a paramilitary force. The police would become a use of domestic terrorism plausibility of a state and stopping first policy only described as a policy of racial extortion. Police view the black residents as potential targets for money out of the force and most vulnerable by any means, and stop as racism antithetical to the framework of imperceptibility. As part of the state surveillance assembled attempts to gather a mass amount of information about deviant bodies enabling and to examine and control every piece of communities to the greatest extent. Here, 3 assemblages denote the increasing convergence of one discrete information data gathering system surveillance how forward to distance the endeavor discreetly structure opposite stability and constancy. Surveillance capabilities are increasingly directed towards the human body with the assessment of various information technology bodies broken into series of data flows such as introduction and breakthrough divisions that know whether it is free-flowing phenomena contributes to the creation of physical and community or capture strife and appropriate forces in attempts to create structure by fixing bodies state of gridlock and interior states that cannot account for deviancy. The state wants to know everything about deviant communities. Are they criminals? Do they have a warrant for their arrest? Who are they? Do they own guns? What are they up to? Complicity in the face of sovereign first laws. The state continues its statistical project to make everyone clearly legible and eliminate difference. So which means that in instances of stopping for police who qualified immunity for police officers should be limited by removing the clearly established standard of Perry 16. The Supreme Court instituted qualified immunity doctrine to shield the governmental officials civil liability unless they violate clearly established right. Qualified immunity is coupled with injurious policing practices to ensure that cops can assert their authority without fear of consequence. Stop and frisk is a doctrine predicated on double standard abuse and horrific consequence to victims of police abuse. Now cross checks all except now preferences of specificity and implementation just reviewed by my offensive verification that heated topical education to determine that the qualified immunity defense is also increasing and courts have been quietly expanding it for years as their inherency evidence supports. 16 in recent years, the Supreme Court opinions behind the qualified immunity defense engaged a pattern of increasingly growing generous terms of qualifying, deviating from past precedent without offering any defense or acknowledgement. Of course, the partial reject conditionality point is that the debate tendency advocates something and then immediately disadvocates and inconvenient for them is a wrong model they're searching for the best case position, which will only increase the alternativism viewpoint is bad for critical engagement. User never incentivize to defend your arguments, just go for the one that's uncovered, which minimizes substantive engagement and critical issues. Then you don't have to debate arguments are challenging and nuance. And the app is also key to removes the ambiguities surrounding the standards set by forth that allow for stopping for to continue. Foul 13 by updating the policy and controls and individuals after discussion. NYPD to eliminate stopping for the consequences of the ambiguities carried out the entire police force. It's likely the officer in planning procedure will be unsure how to legally utilize stopping for discussion. Civil litigations empirically result in the decline of stopping for the average to be moral at all 15. The results provide direct evidence of the impact of civil litigation on stop and frisk. The number of stops conducted by officers dropped more than 90%. The geographic concentration of stops in mostly minority practices have also declined. Third, stops appear to be more efficient and accurate. The NYPD's alternative day-to-day practice with regard to stop and frisk. Now the underview. First, The neg must gain outfits around most one conditional routes value to key to affirmative strategy since otherwise it's negative. We can delay the paper and clash related to the affirmative layer curves in 1 year B point is clash this interpretation forces the negative to engage in AC rather than reuse upper conclusive layer. Second theory is an RBI for the F. If I win no abuse or offense or counter interpretation, I should win the round 8 point is time skew theory moves the entirety of the F and accessories. The 13 is 7 times skew and the 7.3 next side by 6 and 2 and R means that they can go in substance. Actually, let's scratch off the side by argument. Giving the F no chance to cover every layer in the 2A RB point is reciprocity and more qualitative rest of the valve. They can win on substantive theory because it means that they have to win in both order to win. Neg always goes bidirectional in theory. While the F's weak in the dark, they have the structural advantage. C point is education. Disincentivizing theory for strategic reason promotes substantive education. Either the main class of theory and no education, or any wizard theories can do huge depth of it. Also, in Montecalvo, you drop the argument and re-evaluate offensive through the text or resolution. A point is that the F goes blind to the round while the negative react. It has to be able to read bidirectional topicality. And B point is that ensures that the negative only reads topicality when there's real abuse rather than it has to just no risk issue on negative theory and T. Use of reasonability paralleling with the right line of a structural abuse. There's multiple legitimate interpretations of the topic.
Please read them.
Yes, sir. Here.
What is structural abuse?
Structural abuse is specific to the nature of debate. For example, reciprocity would be an instance of structural abuse. Something like ground or education would not be.
Okay. Next, what does it mean for us to become?
What do you mean by that?
What are the components of becoming?
That is not relevant to the affirmative case.
Why?
The argument is that...
What's the premise of the F?
The premise of the F is that things such as affect, our sentiments, irrational thought, always affect who we are.
So those affect who we are. Those are the components of becoming. Alright, what is affect?
Affect is irrational thought, or things that, like, we have, like, intuitions about certain things.
Alright, what about effect?
Effect is the world around us.
Okay, so the world around us plays a major component in our identity, right?
Yep.
To what extent do we understand whether affect or effect comes first?
The argument is not...
So say I'm, like, being, like, killed, right? I still have, like, legitimate affective, like, cognition about the world.
I got distracted.
So, say I have, like... So, say I have this, like, universal understanding of... like, or have, like, this universal understanding of, like, beauty, right? We all, like, know, like, beauty means the same thing to us, right?
No.
Why? If I was to say something is, like, beautiful, right, what does that mean to you?
Well, I obviously have my own interpretation. That's the point of the app.
Okay. So, if you have your own interpretation of different relations, right, your own affect, why is effect relevant?
The argument is that a combination of affect and effect determine who we are as an agent.
So, to what extent is that combination relevant?
The argument is that imperceptibility is the solution to that. The app does not take a stance upon which comes first.
Wait, what? Imperceptibility is the solution to the distinction between affect and effect?
No. The argument is that we have to understand affect and effect when we're constructing an ethic.
Yes.
As a result of that, imperceptibility is the standard that we should use.
Okay. What does it mean to be imperceptible?
Not be having a static conception, or like not having a static identity or being recognizable, so that we cannot be categorized.
Okay, what's the role of ballot?
The role of Alan McCormick?
Yeah.
It's to fight the oppressive politics of recognition. Do you want me to explain?
How does the app fight the oppressive politics of recognition?
By making it so that stop and frisk is not a thing, so that the state cannot understand us.
So if stop and frisk is not a thing, the state cannot recognize us. What? So, isn't a limitation on stop and frisk trying to like recognize individuals who are being stopped and frisked in the first place? Like the Juror 15 evidence says that there's racial inequality as a result of stop and frisk. The affirmative remedies that racial inequality. Why is there not a contradiction?
The racial inequality, that's a material condition, but the argument specifically is like, yes, we would first have to obviously know who are the individuals being stopped and frisked, but the conclusion is that once we recognize those individuals, we put them in a place where we recognize those individuals.
Okay, so the app recognizes those individuals.
You use recognition to fight an overarching system of a surveillance assemblage. Like, maybe this is like the Ripstein, like, hindering a hindrance argument.
What? Your Deleuzian app is like Ripstein?
No, I'm joking. But the argument is like the same thing.
Okay. Wait, so you are biting into the politics of recognition to limit the...
No, I'm saying if you make that turn, I will make the response that the entirety of the app is still a good thing.
Alright, good thing. That's a false response. Yeah, no, I want you to defend state action.
No way. Sure.
I will not read terms to the applicant.
No.
Read it. Okay. The app is a limitation on qualified media, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's state actually.
$45 seconds left. Or is 3 off case? Okay.
What's the order? I wasn't listening.
3 off case.
When you go to the case, is it top down or are we starting with the underview?
Sadly, with the underview.
Shocker. Alright.
Did you send it?
Hmm?
Did you send it?
Yeah, I got it.
I'm getting.
Everyone ready?
Yes.
Alright, everyone good?
Mm-hmm.
Counter of the battle for debate about truth or falsity, the resolution of one. Since any interpretation is excluded, we have to open the interpretation ethically responsible. We should fact the exclusionary starting point, which structured debate, highlight moment, interrogation. But if you build a substantive formula, roll the battle created normative frame, structurally designed contesting, truth testing neutral because the empty target we need to prove, disprove truth of proposition. Move. Power can be grasped in this perspective, which objective that some of those social agents, which mastery foundation, solution, which agents become democratic, which is limited claims, recognize mutual claims, which power irreversible, which is democratic character, which affect this actor, irreducible representation finality, acknowledgement, which is transform recognition, which absence of domination, which institution through can be contested. Second, any comparison between depends on proper interpretation after being compared to the which only better advocacy, which coherent interpretation advocacy better in the first place interpretation fails because truth condition advocacy is 3. Using judges, educator, and forces social norms creates coercive oscillation, which meaningful education meaningful is rigor. Fundamental critical pedagogy. The teacher becomes the best critical pedagogy itself. The oppositional dominant forms, which is devastation, capitalist interest, nevertheless reinforces authoritarian model, libertarian pedagogy, capital pedagogical, pedagogical, pedagogical vision, libertarian means motions, which which oppositional politics with them. Turns case you entrench violence, that you try to resolve the which controls the internal McCormick can call evidence because McCormick can call evidence because the notion of the forcing becoming on the space forces a norm of becoming, which means the role about itself is self-defeating, which concludes in truth or falsity, and even so, it loses conception. It loses frame presupposes conception in truth or falsity because even if individuals are becoming, there's still some notion of truth between individuals, i.e. that affect is affect and effect is effect, which means your frame collapses truth as saying second on. First, police are state entities. A point, they exist because the state employs them from them. B point, textually, wait. Police officers maintain law and order across the state police of jurisdiction. And the F posits a limitation on qualified immunity necessitates an action onto the state. Thus, when limiting qualified immunity, someone by necessity has to be limiting the state's power because they're allowing for apparatus of vulnerable litigation. The reasonable apparatus prove that other apparatus can limit the state's power, while the negative prove that cannot. I.e., when the state limits an action, they exert. When someone limits the action of the state, they exert authority onto the state. So the state cannot engage in the practice of the state. If the state's power cannot be limited, then you would negate now. For additionally, 1. Conceptual necessity of the police work for the state limiting qualified immunity the effect of the state. Someone limiting the state's power that the state can never. If no one can limit the state power, then you can limit qualified immunity. Police it means A point you negate if the burden is false because proves legislation false. B point 3 requisite debate about the resolution because burden evaluates what means here from you negate 3. Second hijacks your rules about any strategies against suppression must be pragmatic. Otherwise, second ivory tower theorizing which tangible change. B point not whether prohibition good methodology against suppression relies on state action against agents. And 3 4 additionally independently prefer because it's prerequisite actually evaluating whether or not the ACs actually actualized in the first place, i.e. the notion of becoming to presuppose that we can actually reshape our relations between individuals, i.e. effect, which is the second component of becoming. But if I disprove they cannot actually relate in an effective relationship with the app, therefore you cannot do the advocacy, which means the advocacy is incoherent under his frame. Now, negate the constituent feature of law that the sovereign creates. The sovereign lives outside by the complete control of the government, so the sovereign is the only authority, all creating a safe exception. No one can undermine the sovereign and the safe exception of government forward. The sovereign is inside and outside state standings in which it decides the constitution, suspend factually applied order, establish judicial sovereign situation effectively. The sovereign guarantees situation with law needs on the state of exception, not chaos precedes suspension, which only included land judicial withdrawn, which is situation created only created in which meeting a law of sovereign deciding which created law only creation of law political validity sovereign created to the threshold of between chaos and 2 impacts 1 unity since the state never since no one can limit the state's authority and state of exception sovereign complete control even if the instituting policies otherwise some passive government sovereign just have the legal limitation through the state to 2 turns case applicant to limit qualified immunity by the state regulates how individuals have identity agreement. The state not simply distant overwhelmingly have the right to declare war safe exception ever possible prior to continuing war political decisions which is decision waiting for disposal left all the political sovereign commitment of people. Third off. Interpretation. The act must not defend the limitation of qualified immunity or response to specific class of crimes. To clarify, I can't limit qualified immunity and stop and frisk cases. The violations that's as per the advocacy, which means you actually don't meet the interpreter because it's a question of your advocacy. Now, vote. Next one limits to 8 point. There's infinite number of specific crimes to limit qualified immunity. Different concepts are trivially true. Obviously, cops abuse of power shouldn't have a qualified immunity point. Should debate shouldn't have whether qualified immunity is the best response to specific class of crime. No longer debating about the resolution. First, education because the advocate res dealing with negative sets garner extra often. Second, talk to qualified immunity determined light of officers' duty, abstract, not specific crime situation confronted on the watchman. Police powers the context of issues raised in which principles conflict in the preemption statement which use guidance and community applicable case of crimes that they establish examining duties alone irrespective of requirements of criminal law. Top list litmus test whether engaging the officer litmus is incoherent in the field context. Skip the rest of the argument. Third, ground 8 point. Skip the ground standard. Now voter fairness because basically rules of education. Why schools find a use community interpretation visibility arbitrary because intervention and definitely unfair. Drop the 8 point deter feature B to B1. Drop the argument T incoherent because the argument often advocacy functionally same. No RVI 8 point quick chilling effect is a dangerous thing. Dear long counter interpret the 1 what the 2 concepts contextualize the theory debate and B point that are logical unfair vote for me makes no sense. Logic comes before the because it frames on that graphical level arguments now under you. First, performative contradiction. You enforce the norm on me through the unconditional right on the valid argument, which undermines everything. The second counterinterpretation, the negative garner offense off multiple conditional logic. If it's a new after, the first is reactionary flexibility. I.e., the negative has to have the ability to have multiple layers and then collapse on one specific one because I never know what the after specifically, especially in the context of new after. It truly internally clash because otherwise we have no conversation about the after. And theory is not our reactor. The after time is not unique because time is not unique because we both have 13 minutes. Also, the tutor has a unique ability to collapse, which means and recontextualize counterinterpretation, which outweighs specifically and reciprocity makes no sense because you can read your own style and education is incoherent because otherwise a top discussion because your collapse is especially worse and don't reevaluate advocacy on top category. A point is that it's incoherent because if I'm justifying why your advocacy is bad then that's not justified. B point is that the app does not go the app does not speak line around if anything negative reactionary because this is a new app specifically and the B point is the B point makes no sense because you can read your own child to counteract on the abuse. Now don't use reasonability rather than around structural abuse because I'm specifically proving why it's structurally impossible for me to engage, i.e. limiting my grounds is direct structural abuse. Now, after framing.
the first performative contradiction, the affirmative still instills an essential idea of what a police officer is, but tries to understand what a specific understanding of a police officer is. Second is that the officer tries to include specific individuals, i.e. stop and frisk excludes individuals, certain races as per your juror evidence, but that obviously be applied to McCormick evidence, but on the level as first Messi makes no sense, is insufficient because we still have objective understanding of specific things, i.e. what affect and effect is, which means framing takes itself out. Also, graduality takes out the rest of the framing, because if we're becoming imperceptible, that means we can never have effective relationships between individuals, so we can never form specific communities between anyone, and your education impact is no terminal impact, because there's a T version of the F, you can just defend the resolution general principle, which means you can't leverage the case against topicality. Now, minority becoming requires protocols experimentation that necessitates topical switch side debate beginning of becoming above 11 and tabulation, not presuming ideal temporal becoming in which without collectivity have this contingent specific one races into whole finds the contents of the experimentation not haphazard reference point experimentation by which have them move toward the future reference points. Now, the contention turned it, the allows for political officers to exist in which normative spheres inhibit becoming of yes to 10. Subjectification, disidentification, describes how subject identified community. Subjectification exists in which order bodies politics a particular place and time police originating spontaneous social relation, originating state functions, and cut the cardinal functions, which means insofar as the police exist in the world of yes, they often never actually solve because the police inherently exist to govern individuals, i.e. since they're intrinsic to the state, which means the affirmative can never garner office.
Okay.
The analytics in the footnote changed, but I'll explain that to you in CX.
Okay. What is the highest layer of the debate right now? There is a burden, there is a counter rolled about, there's the after rolled about, and there's the theory arguments. Which is the highest layer?
Under your rolled about the Vogel evidence.
Okay, come on. Just tell me what the highest layer is.
What do you want it to be?
Oh, okay. We're gonna play this game.
Maybe.
If I say theory and you say no, it's gonna be the roll of ballot.
Actually, wait. Let me think. No, don't read that shell.
You don't take a stance?
Wait. Ask me at the end of CX. I'll think about it.
No, like right now.
Okay. Truth testing is its
3
own.
more seconds.
Truth testing is its own paradigm for debate. Topical theory is an independent reason to drop the app because it's impossible to engage in the advocacy. You cannot go for the app and not respond to topical theory.
You just explained how the 1 and C work. Like, what is the highest layer of the debate?
So, theory dictates how we...
Just say you don't take a stance if you won't.
Well, I just explained. Theory dictates how we debate substantively, right? Truth testing rolls about precludes yours, but that does not necessarily entail that often back to
So
truth
what is
testing.
the highest layer of the debate?
What?
So what is
Well,
the
I
highest
just
layer?
explained it to you.
Alright, that's fine.
I just said,
Let's say I concede the negative roll of the ballot. Does the Rickert argument function as offense
Yes.
still? Why? It only turns the affirmative case under my roll of the ballot.
No, it's an independent reason to drop it.
Why? What is the argument? Explain your
Because you're forcing a pedagogy that promotes that, recreates the same impression that you...
Wait. Explain that warrant.
So, even if you concede truth testing roll about...
No, I don't want to know that. I want to know the warrant in Rickert itself.
So the argument is indicative of your practice, right? You cannot concede my counter roll about and just...
No. I just want to know the warrant in Rickert.
Oh, the warrant in Rickert?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The argument is that whenever we engage in pedagogical practices, i.e. between a student and a teacher, such as the after roll of the ballot...
So what is the alternative?
The judge is always enforcing truth testing. The judge is always enforcing some normative understanding of what is pedagogy, right? Which has multiple...
Does the T interpretation not also make claims like the best way we can achieve education is by the judge enforcing a specific norm?
So the T interpretation is not about specifically things such as critical pedagogy, right?
So what is the distinction between saying you have to do this form of critical pedagogy and you have to do X interpretation?
The distinction is that you have to do X version of critical pedagogy is to some specific...
This argument is that the teacher knows best. Your model of debate that assumes topicality would seem to say like the teacher knows best in the context of theory interpretation.
If anything, it's not, because you're establishing... The distinction is that your role about endows an obligation upon the judge, right, in order to evaluate the round.
Wait, so how does fairness... Wait, fairness and education don't put responsibilities upon the judge?
No, because topicality is the norm between debaters, i.e. I keep checks on you because of fairness, right? That's not the same exact argument that Rickert is criticizing, because Rickert is criticizing the engagement between teacher and student.
Okay.
Oh, you will?
I will.
Those 7 seconds are really going to help you.
I really will. Alright, start right. confirm the warrants for theory next specific.
They're topical theory specific.
I see. Well, you can see that I get dropped the beta, I get no RBI.
If you don't want it, I'll take it.
Will I concede that? Oh, wait. Yeah, I justify it, yeah. I have to concede that.
Wait, what do you, no, your arguments are next specific.
No, they aren't. They're topical theory specific.
Okay.
I'll concede, you get dropped.
No, that's fine, it's fine.
Whatever. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna...
Sorry about it.
Okay.
Come on, Sam. That's a good one.
Let's go.
Be careful, that is a choking hazard.
Maybe.
I'm still honored at screenshots of me for the violation of an earshot.
That's hilarious.
The round came down to me.
Wait, so it's just like that messaging you. Disclosure. Here's like, fuck off.
I was overly polite in the most annoying way. I was like, I really respect her. She was so scared.
Oh, new message.
Message DJ is like, I assume the lack of your disclosure is a technical issue. Are you correct? Fuck you. I know technical shit.
You guys want to see that breakfast? Fucking up.
What is the water?
You have
30 seconds left.
You have 27.
Yeah, 20 seconds left.
29.
I would have been funny if you hadn't taken that 7 Cossack. So
Oh,
you
you're
have to
right,
kinda-
you're right.
Wow.
Wow.
What's the order?
Let me live.
Actually,
Like, it's not time.
You're welcome.
What? So he can propagate the person. He can document screenshot.
Oh, that was what you're talking about? Oh, yeah, now I got you. He didn't tell me who though.
Oh, was he venting? Did you not like that?
No, I mean, I don't think he like, has a preference.
Well, like, Terrence, like, hates it. That's what I'm saying. Like,
No, like, I
people,
don't
people
really
take
know.
screenshots of, like, other people, like...
No,
Did he ask him things? He obviously didn't ask him.
Because
Like, that's
like,
fucked up.
someone like messaged like Ruffy or Bennett, like I don't even know who, was like, well, her take one disclosure here, and he was like, what? If he asked like something you can't respond to without it, like yeah, like I guess. So
He says, you're just mad because legally
you may begin.
What? Oh, no, I'm emailing it out.
Oh, okay, no.
It's an interesting strategy.
Oh, also, when y'all were talking, we were talking, so I didn't hear what you guys were saying. Was there anything?
I don't think we
before?
said anything meaningful.
Okay, nothing. You were just bantering.
You just whispered something really mean.
Wait, what did I say? You may begin. Why did it? Is that what I said?
Oh, yeah, you
You really didn't say that. You really didn't.
You did? Okay.
We're allowed to start now.
Is that what I
So, the order is...
Wait, I didn't get
Give myself in the court.
I'll just say the order. The counter interrupts the 1 in C shell, 2 new shells, truth testing.
I already forgot that. Can you just signpost after whatever you said first?
We
Because I also
Yeah.
Can you
forgot.
say it again?
What
Yeah, I'll
was
say
it?
it
3
again.
more times.
The NC shell,
Got it.
2 new shells,
2 new shells. Okay.
truth testing.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I was
you're good.
talking to Saz all that time. One more time.
The NC shell,
And
2 new shells,
2 new shells.
then the truth testing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You're a mensch. No, what I'm saying.
A mensch. Yeah, no, I got you.
It's a Jew word.
I am also Jewish.
You.
Which is why I said I got you. Yeah.
What's my Jew?
So is everybody good?
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Counter-interpretation, you have to defend a limitation of qualified immunity or response to specific class of crimes. They have a solvency gap because the topic literature. First argument is that general limitation is too vague and excuse fairness. Only specification of specific crime solves NL 16 in generic. Affirmative limit of qualified immunity doctrine will be very difficult to pin out the exact efficacy will make negating its position very difficult to debate with overall backlash and be unproductive. Also, turns your topic literature standard because it specifically doesn't talk about qualified immunity in the context of qualified immunity in the legal system in the context of debate, which is that obviously with skew fairness. Also turns to limit arguments because even if it opens the case list to too many affirmatives, you would still not be able to debate those affirmatives because the 1 year would always be able to shift out your AFC, and the model to be makes 1 area AFC shifts inevitable and two-time strategies since the AF. Well, it always the AF would inevitably clarify what limits mean. Limit means based on what I do, and shift based on what specific crimes you defend, which is that only specifying specific model of crimes would solve. Second, arguments ground knowing how the AF influence their policy is key to solve to be uniquely important for the topic since the negative drastically changes their strategy based upon the negative AF defensive limitation, no qualified immunity overturning specific court case or clarification of current policy. Also turns their limits argument because all of your generic reasons that's why civil litigation might be bad will also turn the limits argument that it doesn't matter based on the specific class or crimes. Also advocacy skills and unique reason for my interpretation, which is independent reason for the counter-interpretation of my undermining counter-interpretation. We don't just engage whether or not qualified immunity is a doctrine is good or bad, whether the limitation would be enforceable, which is a major issue policymakers like Obama address. Obviously, you never see a limitation on qualified immunity in general, but specific class or crimes, which is specifically the solvency advocate have now the nuance. Interpretation, the negative justifies competing interpretation. They have to specify whether the paradigm entails the norm setting model or in-round abuse model. The requirement explicit counter-interpretation text and text or security in the interpretation meta theory also outweighs these and questions the validity of their shells in the first place. If I don't have access to justify my practices and then their abuse stories are meaningless. Now the violation. You should state that theories and issue competing interpretation. The negative now the standard strategy to absent specification what competing interpretation means. You can spin the warrants for competing interpretation. The force of loss based on what I feel to use skew strategy since I know the optimal way to what's wrong the theory. It makes every research on competing interpretation no risk issue. And a relative speech with key fairness since with the theory skew prevents me from being able to justify my practice or fear. You can way as well as not responsive. I can do that in my interpretation as well as a question whether or not you establish a clear delineation of how offense and defense function in theory. It also means that you should default to the norm setting model and competing interpretation because the violation proves that the norm is not set now, that the opponent did something wrong, showing the need for change in theory. Also, AF theory in general is a reason to drop the debate because the time crunch 1 year is insufficient when both theory and substance, and the AF has no ability to check easily the infinite harm. Maybe the 2 hour can collapse on AF theory, making it impossible to AF cover all the arguments in a 3 minute. 2 hour if they split the times with the substance theory. Also, competing interpretation and reasonability. Reasonability is a red line for mitigating a shell, and being led to use judgment mentioned because thresholds or unreasonable views are different, which creates a race of one with both papers and they can see just why. Also, you do have the possibility of going for new 1 year theory bad arguments. You should have read those arguments specifically in the context of the anti only proves the abuse. If you go for these arguments in 2 hour abuse, it skews the entirety of 2 hour strategy over. If I have to respond to a dump of reasons, that's why meta theory and 1 year theory that also means that it's an infinite abuse because you have the possibility of dumping those arguments, but also it means that the AF has no possibility of reading theory in the first place, which justifies the negative being infinitely abusive in every single scenario. Next off. Interpretation in debaters theory shows function through a norms creation model or not the abuse model. Clarify interpretation in the NTM proposed to rule that would produce better norms to make the opponent's incompatible produce better norms the opponent's incompatible interpretation. Now the violation is that you say no RBI, but under the norms creation model, any net beneficial interpretation would be sufficient to vote, which is that you violate specifically in the context of European interpretation. If I win in counter interpretation, I still do not get an RBI, which is that even if I prove the net beneficial interpretation, I would still not win. Now the reason to vote is norms creation. Punishing views of theory require the judge both debaters to be inconsistent, which is that there's no culpability, which means that enforcement of that rule is impossible. My model solves because the voter rewards the debater best exemplifies the norms that opposing voting on the debater who violates it, which is more submitting. Viewpoint my model uniquely threads norms and LDB by specifying the exact norm of debate through the community through the interpretation. It's clear what advocacies usually the judge should be comparing which contrasts with the abuse model of the theory, which is just the interpretation clarify the abuse. Also time differential for the affirmative. Affirming against the theory, the AF has to win on 2 levels theory and subs, which means that the affirmative will lose a disproportionate rounds primarily because the 1 year has problems answering theory, which is that my theory interpretation will ultimately solve this argument. And this is an independent voter uses the function of voters to set the norm of the interpretation, making the shell voter forces both debaters to engage the issue in notification would allow the norm disparate, which is that's also internal link to any of his fairness impacts or education impacts because there's a prior question meeting theory in the first thing. Now the truth testing arguments, he's going to go for the Ricker K, but the first argument is that the more correct evidence specifically says that we create new lines of flight so that the imperceptibility means that kids can do anything. The second argument is that this is definitely not a voting issue. If I can see truth testing, then obviously this is even if the logic of the app was bad, under truth testing, this is not a reason why the resolution is true or false.
Okay, 44 seconds. Cool. Do you want me to write down my counterintuitive?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to.
To write down counterintuitive.
I mean, like I'm saying, you should still write it down right now.
Okay.
I don't care for that.
Wait, so do you want me to write
Yeah, like I'm saying, like I'm not gonna be like start the speech now.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
This lollipop is so good. I feel so happy.
Mine was kind of
In the
gross. I just
document,
ate it immediately.
Yeah.
Oh.
I can delete the stuff I don't read.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just have a question. For the brackets, is it just like you don't read some of the things that are in brackets?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah. No, you're good then.
So are you?
And then
Was that August?
Thank you. You're my favorite student. You're super nice.
okay. It'll be truth testing in a Gombin. Quickly, then both the shells. Alright, sending out the email.
Truth testing his shells, you said?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I sent it. Okay. So, truth testing and the Gombin stuff. And then, the shells. There'll be an overview on both of them and then counterinterprets to each.
Just to review that, can you review it real quick?
Yeah.
I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. I was texting.
That's fine. It'll be,
We got newspapers.
alright. Is everyone good? It'll be, oh yeah, I forgot to ask you.
No.
So, it'll be, truth testing, right? It'll be a Gombin, right? Those were like conceded, so I don't even know if you have to look at them. Then, the shells in the order you read them. Is everyone ready?
Yeah, you're good.
May they begin?
Alright.
You may.
Okay. Starting now.
David made a huge mistake. He conceded that move takes out theory is the first thing extending move evidence, and since any interpretation is exclusionary, we need to open the interpretations to be ethically responsible. That necessitates truth testing. The framing issue that you should give this argument is that it explicitly takes out theory because the argument is textually specific to interpretations of any statement in the real world, which means that we first must have, which means you can never establish objectivity that theory tries to establish. Also, two impacts: one, it takes out theory, and also justifies truth testing as an independent burden. And also in the CX, I was very clear about why truth testing as a burden comes first. Because my argument is that truth testing is a separate burden, and that top caveat is a independent burden under the burden that you justify. So I can make this new implication of why it takes out both of the theory shells. Now, the next concession was the Gombin, and see, you can see that it's conceptually necessary in order for us to debate. You can see the B point that's a prerequisite actually debating in the first place, because my burden. You can see the B point on conceptual necessity, which means only my burden is a prerequisite to actually debating in the first place, because it actually contextualizes what it means to affirm negate, i.e. what the burdens are of affirming negating, which means the offense under the Gombin burden comes conceptually first. You can see the offense, which means the Gombin evidence says no one can limit the state's power, which means you negate. Even if he wins, I'm going to crush him on both shells. Framing the issue on both of the shells, they both contradict. His first interpretation says I must specify either the norm setting model or the abuse model, but obviously that interpretation, just the first interpretation, necessitates that the abuse model is okay. If I specify the abuse model, then I would meet the first interpretation, but I wouldn't meet the second interpretation, which means that there's a world in which I meet the first interpretation, but not the second interpretation, which means that both of them as norms conflict.
conflict, especially in the context since you justify a norm-setting paradigm, since you establish a norm-setting paradigm, which means that any instance in which both of these norms exist, they would contradict. Second is that you justify reasonability in the AC, which means that you cannot read the second, which means that you violate the second shell, and especially in the context since I conceded reasonability in the AC, i.e., I just made arguments for why my T shell meets reasonability, i.e., reason why my substantive abuse would link to that reasonability bright line, but I'm not contesting the reasonability bright line in the first place, which means the justification of reasonability has two impacts. One, it takes out both of the shells because neither of them are justified structurally. B point, it means that you violate both of your interpretations. Now, on the framing issue. Now the first inter. Counterinterpretation, the neg may not specify whether competing interpretations, paradigms, the norm-setting model, abuse model, or anything, or does not have to specify. If they were going to concede any specification that the AC made first, it solves the entirety of the abuse because solves the entirety of strategy skew because it means that you get to contextualize everything. And even if I didn't explicitly specify that conceded, it's still my norm is still net better under competing interpretations, especially under a norm-setting context, because it does not matter because under competing interpretations, as a norm-setting context, it is just a question of what your norm justifies. If my norm justifies that the negative would have conceded those arguments, the negative would have conceded those arguments, and that norm is comparatively better. Second benefit is debatability, i.e., there's an infinite number of specifications under competing interpretations, i.e., norm-setting abuse model are not the only ones, which means that your interpretation is functionally undebatable because it forces us to actually go into the intricacies of competing interpretations on two impacts. A one is that kills good norm setting because it means we can never actually establish legitimate norms in the first place because we're not debating about which norm is actually good in the first place. Instead, we're debating about which framing is better, i.e., competing interpretations. B point is that it proves your interpretation is undebatable because there's infinite numbers of specifications and it's an independent reason for you to reject his initial interpret. On the strategy skew argument specifically, you concede the arguments for why the 2AR has a unique ability to collapse. The framing issue you should evaluate with this argument is that it justifies by negating his harder, i.e., the ability for the 2AR to uniquely collapse. The ability for the 2AR to uniquely collapse and recontextualize their counterinterpretations is also a reason why you should err heavily negative on a collapse on the theory specifically, which means any argument I concede means that you should err heavily negative. Now the next framing issue on this argument is that even if you don't know what to do, my interpretation means that you can contextualize what to do, and also you can contextualize what to do. Now, okay. Next off. First, you violate this interpretation. You justify why neither debaters get an RBI in your first shell, and the violation of your shell is just neither debater gets an RBI on your first shell. And in the voter section, you say that no RBI on one error theory. That would violate into the norm creation model of competing interpretations because it justifies specifically why an RBI is bad, which means that you have the same exact violation. Violation is at worst non-unique. Now, counterinterpretation, the negative may not specify norm setting or competing interpretations model for theory. The first step benefit is that norm creation model independently fails because it forces us to focus too much specifically on establishing norms, but there's no empirical verification of those norms actually established. For instance, we would say that norm setting model empirically worked for nibs. Well, obviously that's not false because West-Point value reads the result of nib every single specific run. Now, you make justifications for why the reverse voting issue is bad. But if that is true, and the norm creation model of competing interpretation justifies why reverse voting issues are a good thing, then that means any justification for why reverse voting issues are a bad thing is a diss side to your interpretation because that's what your interpretation justifies. So extend the arguments for why neither debater should get an RBI because it allows the 2NR to collapse the specific arguments. You've also conceded why neither debater should get an RBI from the 1NC shell because it kills legitimate establishment of norms, which also controls the interlink to the norm setting shell that you establish in the 1NC shell. So I definitely outweigh on strength of link back to these arguments. Model and of these specific arguments, your norm creation model makes absolutely zero sense. Even if your model specifically says norm creation model, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that we actually establish norms. Second is that even if I specify the abuse model, it would equally be able to establish norms because you would still have the same impact to dropping a debater, which means that you would have the same terminal impact, and the time differential argument has no impact. You can see the non-unique on time difference that I made on the 1AC, i.e. time skew is non-unique because we both have 13 impacts, which means there's no terminal impact to this argument. Now, framing issue. The 1AR put itself in a bad position. It, like they read a ton of theory arguments, right? If this round, or theory debate, is hard and muddled, go to substance. He conceded also move takes out any interpretation. Also, he violates everything he read. They all contradict. Okay.
Do we have everything good to read?
Yeah.
Just all that, right? Great. Sorry. order is going to be an overview to the round, then the extension of the truth testing arguments to take out theory, then it's going to be the first one.
Wait, sorry. What?
Overview on the truth testing stuff.
Is it like a flowing overview or a listening overview?
I think we should slow it a little. Then truth testing stuff, and then the first shell, the must-spec competing interpret shell.
Okay.
Your first shell.
Yeah, my first shell.
Your first. Okay. I feel you.
Can I use this?
Yeah. Okay. Can I use this? Guess we just switch timers. Alright. Are you ready?
Wait, no, I need to get this stuff up.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody good? All the affirmative has to do is when one theory interpretation, but you can see the weighing arguments as to why meta theory comes first, as well as the fairness argument that's constrained the possibility of even weighing any of the theory interpretation arguments in the first place, because all of your specific takeouts specifically are taken out by the specific warrant of the fairness voter that you read in the first place, because you say that fairness is a prerequisite to being able to evaluate any of your arguments in the first place. You said, yes, if Move takes out the theory interpretation, that is a reason as to why you should definitely vote on theory first, but specific to this argument, this is a new to an extrapolation based on the word interpretation, which is I should definitely have response to this argument. The first argument is that, yes, definitely, you say that, you specifically say in the Move argument that you have to open up interpretation be contestable. There's a pre-post got the distinction, which is that you can obviously not vote with this argument because your argument is about constitutive violence being inherent, but that argument definitely does not apply to theory interpretations. It's a post justification for a framework as to how you evaluate the round. In the same way, I cannot say that specifically theory makes me unhappy, so the useful framework taken out. But the second argument is that Move would definitely justify theory debates because it's an issue of competing interpretation, which is that I defend one interpretation of debate and you defend another interpretation. We would contest whether or not which interpretation is good, which is that theory debate itself is definitely under Move's interpretational model. You also see that truth testing is a separate burden. You can see the argument that fairness constrains your possibility of truth testing in the first solution. As long as I win theory, that is a reason to vote affirmative. Now the theory interpretation. Your response to the theory interpretation are pretty bad. You're given for first overview as to why both shells will violate each other, but obviously not. Yes, it appears at first that both shells will violate the interpretation, but if I go for the first interpretation and kick the second, obviously they would not violate the interpretation. My argument is that you should defend a specific normification model, but if I kick that interpretation, then it's just an issue of whether or not you specify those arguments in the first place. Yes, there is a world in which these two violate, but not in the context of this debate round, which is that my argument is just that you should specify one of these models, and that in the context of this round specifically, that you should defend the normification model. If I kick the second interpretation, then it's solely an issue of whether or not you defend whether or not you specify the thing in the first place. You also say that I violate the second interpretation because I justify reasonability. Too bad. That is not a voting issue. If you win that your model of debate is best, then the counter-interpretation will not be an RBI because the counter-interpretation of the normification model will imply that you vote for the debater who broke a rule, which means that there would obviously not be an RBI. And so I just have to win the first interpretation now, extend the first interpretation, which is specifically that the negative justifies competing interpretation. That to specify whether paradigm entails the normification model and round abuse model. You can see in the entirety of the strategy two arguments, which is that I just have to respond to the specifics of your interpretation. You say that you would concede it to what the affirmative specified in the first stage. First argument is that it's unfair if viable. It also links in the norming argument that even in the context of this round, if you would have conceded what the affirmative specified, the strongest internal link is norm setting. If you think that if Momo concedes that this interpretation is a good norm for the debate, then obviously specifying in this one specific round wouldn't solve. The second argument is that it starts the theory debate earlier, and the third argument is that obviously your response to the argument specifically in the norms creation versus the abuse model debate indicate that there's a debate to be had, which is that you shouldn't be conceding to what the AC specified. We should be having a proactive discussion about what the affirmative had. You also say that there's infinite specification, no infinite specification. My interpretation for you specified doesn't involve an infinite regression. Second, even if it leads to infinite specification as an impact term, because under paradigm competing interpretation, infinite specification will be a good thing, which is that it establishes the best possible norm. You say that we have to discuss the actual shells, not the norm itself, but you can see that the possible ways we discuss the shells determine the norm. His negating his harder arguments are framed in terms of, if he wins one shell and I win another, then you should vote for him. All of my arguments are reasons why. There's only one shell because I'm kicking the other. I've definitively won the shell. There's no apparent contradiction in the context of this round, and it functions first under truth testing.
Can I get scratch paper and a pen from one of you? Thank you. Also, can I see? Well, I need to see some things before you leave. Can I see? What am I doing? Do you guys have everything on one doc?
Alright, what do you need?
Actually, now can you just forward me the email chain now that the round's over and I've
Yeah, sure. You want to do it?
Leah Shapiro 5 like the number, not the word, at gmail.com.
How do I spell Shapiro?
TJ thinks, well, I'm getting it because the round already is over.
S-H-A-P-H-I-R-O?
SHAPIRO. TJ, or Trent thinks TJ lost.
Really?
U Chicago?
At Gmail. Leah Shapiro 5 at Gmail.
Wait, what?
He just says there's a good chance TJ might have lost this round. No. What happened in college round? Was it, you said it was close?
Yeah, I know. I was like, Monty's on the panel. I know I got 30 minutes, so this is done.
Could you email change everything? Because he sent me one page of freaking overview of analytics or something.
Okay.
Just Ryan Hubbard.
I just need, can you send me the AC? And then I'll tell you anything else.
Wait, it's us Heritage.
So the AC, and then if you could also send me the shell that Leah Shapiro 5.
And then also
The
and what was
the 1AR, yeah, the 1AR.
very shallow.
Thank you very much.
That I included them for running.
Yeah. What was it again?
It's something with.
Was it spending something?
Oh yeah.